Okay, welcome to my midterm code summary. The first thing we have here is the libraries I'm using, and that's IOStream, string, and IOManip. Those are all come in handy for this. And we have an error string right here. That's just for to follow the pseudocode or to follow the instructions, and for the convenience of it, it comes in handy. And I also made a request input string so that it would be easier to ask the user to put in what they want to do. Less cluttered. Then I have a chart for choice. You can just look at all these just at first glance. It's mostly important to note that total score equals 0, high score equals 0, and low score equals 10, because those are a bit particular. So the first thing you see here is a do while loop that encompasses this entire body of code, and that is where you put in the choice of, or that's how you accept the input of, accept the decision of whether you want to loop the program again. So then you have a welcome message, and it asks you for the number of your desired action. And if you pick 1, this is the menu. 1 for 3 judges, 2 for 5 judges, and 3 to quit. It accepts the input, it validates that input with this right here, a while loop. And if you selected 1, then it runs all this. And that's first it asks you how many gymnasts. It accepts the input, validates the input between 1 and 20. And a for loop that allows the program to run for as long as the gymnast that you're on is less than or equal to the total number of gymnasts that you chose. And it starts at gymnast number 1 and increases by 1 every loop. And I put this handy little statement so that it tells you which gymnast you're on, because I thought that'd be really nice to just keep track of. It asks for the name with a string.get so that this get line statement works properly. And then you put in the 3 scores. I use the for loop that works the same way as it does up here, or right here, and score number. And this also is the same as the gymnast one, keeping track of which one you're on. So it accepts the score, because this loop loops for 1 score each time. So you put in your number, it validates that it's in between 1 and 10, and then adds that onto the total score, which, as I stated earlier, starts at 0. And then it runs it again until this is 3. So once you're out of that, set precision to 2, because you probably want 1 decimal since you are working with decimals. And calculates the average score by dividing the total score, which you accumulated up here, by 3. Then there's a flush here so that it doesn't linger for the next loop. If you had picked 5 judges, everything works the same except you can have 50 gymnasts and you put in 5 scores. But most importantly, there are if-else statements in here that I actually just realized you don't need the else part for, because the else part is it just gets skipped over. But those are to determine the low score and the high score that we want to omit as specified in the instructions. And I did that by setting low score to 10, so that if your score is less than that, then that's your new low score, and that happens each time. And setting high score to 0, so if your score is higher than that, then that's your new high score. And with those, it doesn't make a difference until later on, right here. But so you still have the total score accumulated in the same way as it was earlier. And then this all works the same except for the calculation of the average, because you are omitting the low score and the high score. So obviously you need to subtract them from the total, but in order to make that stay consistent, you have to keep this number as a 3, since you're now working with only 3 numbers, or 3 of the scores. And then your flush is the same, except you have to include the low score and the high score so that those variables also get flushed. And that'll loop until you're done with your contestants. So once you're outside of that, it asks you if you want to run the program again, and your do while statement comes in. If you put in a lowercase y or an uppercase y, then it'll loop it. And if you put in anything else, it'll probably be an uppercase n or a lowercase n, but if you happen to put in anything else, it'll still just spit you out right here and quit. And that about sums it up. Thank you for listening.